This is the Balance Dilemma. We tackle the often uniquely, but not always, female dilemma, managing life, work, family, and self. I'm Maura Carlin.
And I'm Christy Derrico. At the Balance Dilemma, we speak with women and men to hear their balanced stories. Our guests are entrepreneurs, reinventors, creators, executives, parents, and partners, telling us what we really want to know. How the heck did they manage that? And can you have it all and all at the same time?
When you think of two women writing together for 38 years, you might picture polite collaboration, gentle edits, maybe the occasional disagreement over a comma. You probably don't imagine a front row seat to divorce, death, new partners, and the brutal honesty of aging, all while writing books, blogs, and a partnership that refuses to quit. But that's exactly who Barbara Ballinger and Margaret Crane are, and their story's going to change how you think about female friendship, what's possible after 50, and why they're definitely not dead yet. We're diving into the dreams that died, the ones that surprised them by arriving late, and what they now know that they wish they could tell their 50-year-old selves. Welcome to the Balance Dilemma, Barbara and Margaret.
Thank you for having us.
Boy, that's a first, what you would tell your 50-year-old self. But the question that comes to me that I'm really dying to know, as a writer, I think of it as a solitary endeavor. And with you two, that's not the case. You are collaborative writers. How the heck does that work?
Well, we've had a long time to fine-tune, tweak our writing partnership. We started off as a trial run after we met, and we were friends, but not good friends, I would say, at that point. We both wanted to do a book about family business. Meg's family had a family business. And she had written about it. I had been writing about family business for a newspaper in St. Louis, and we thought we would join forces. So we tried it out together, working in the basement of Meg's then home in St. Louis, sitting side by side, doing an outline, a proposal, and getting a book contract.
Now, we had another co-author team, well, half of it, on another show. So it's interesting to hear your take on how that worked, shoulder to shoulder. Meg, how did that go?
It's been terrific, actually. I had the computer, so that's why we were in my basement. The other thing that was interesting, we had 5 kids between us, and they were running around in the other room while we were trying to do the writing. But we had an instant rhythm, I think, and synergy.
Yeah, we figured out that after we developed our proposal and got the contract, we decided that people say, always ask us, how do you write together? How's it possible? And we didn't know what we would do, but we figured it out by one of us would start a chapter and then send it to the other by email. And Meg early on told me I wasn't yet using Word. I was still using floppy disks in the dark ages. And she said, you have to start using Word or we can't work together. So I did so. And we went back and forth with it. And the goal was, which I think we achieved, was when a chapter was done, we didn't know who had started it, who had made the changes, really one voice. Yet we each had very different skills, I think, in starting and fine-tuning. Meg's a much more literary reader, and I think that's reflected in the writing.
Yeah, that was one of our questions. Do you finish each other's sentences?
Or
is it one thought?
Whatever we write now, we have no idea who did what. It's really seamless.
Surely, over the years, there have been moments of disagreement. You must have stories of things that you saw differently. And how did you resolve them?
I think we both have a lot of respect. We have a lot of fondness for each other, friendship, but we also have respect for each other. And I think we've developed a pattern of, if someone feels very strongly about a topic for a blog or how we're going to handle a chapter, the other person says, okay, you feel stronger about that. And we wrote a blog. I wrote a blog that I thought was very, very funny.
And it was.
We both care about humor a lot. And I wrote a blog last April Fool's Day, and it was politically oriented. And I really wanted to do it. So it was very creative. And Meg read it and didn't want to do it. And she was pretty adamant about that. And she said, you can do it on your own. You can sell it to someone else or do it, but I don't want my name on it. So my feeling in that case, I was a little hurt, but I had to respect it.
I didn't know you were a little hurt.
Of course I was a little hurt. I thought it was so creative.
It was very creative. It would have caused an uproar.
So, I mean,
And we had
38
another case where a book that we did, we were a little concerned about, the legal parts of writing and the rights and what
right.
people say. It's gotten harder. And it was a busy time in both of our lives. We were both thinking about or getting ready to move. And I
was
felt we
moving.
needed some extra legal protection and to spend a little more money on a lawyer. And Meg did not want to. And I did. And in that case, we worked it out that I paid for it because we don't keep track of
That's
who
true.
pays for what.
So
Likewise.
interesting.
Long
Yep.
ago, we knew because I had written also with someone else who did keep track of it. And it's like, I get more for this article because I did more. Meg and I have never had that policy.
Right.
So interesting. So you two, with 38 years of friendship, you've witnessed a lot in each other's lives: divorces, deaths, remarriages, grandchildren. I mean, you've got a front seat to each other's real lives and your transformations. What makes a female friendship like this durable, and what, if anything, almost broke it?
Well, let me just add one correction. We don't have a remarriage. I have a partner, but there's not a remarriage.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I just think we both care more about each other. We care about our work greatly, but I care more about Meg than I do about the individual story, or we care about each other's families. We care about each other's friends, even if we're not friends of those friends.
So
There's glue.
yeah, you're woven into each other's lives.
That's
That's
how I
great.
see it.
So let's move to some of your productions. You have a book called Not Dead Yet, which I love, with the reference to
title.
Spam-A-Lot and Monty Python. And you have a blog that continues called Life Lessons at 50. I think your last book was Kitchen Design.
Kitchen Conversations, which is here.
There you go.
Good job, Vanna White.
But I want to talk about Not Dead Yet first, because it really covers a lot of ground about all the different things people may face after 50. I mean, the subtitle is Rebooting Your Life After 50, and there's an awful lot of material in there. What do you think is the most important message from it?
I think for me, the most important is dealing with grown children. I have found that much harder. I have two grown daughters who both are married, have children. They do things in many cases differently than I might do it or did it. And I've learned to keep my mouth shut for the most part. There are a few times I've spoken up. It's very rare that.
Meg, how about you?
The balance between working, raising our kids, then having to take care of our parents and ourselves. And how do you achieve that kind of balance? How do you not go overboard in some areas? And it's learning to accept the fact that it's fine to be imperfect and you're going to tip the scales one way or another anyway. But this is a particularly interesting stage of life because we know so much more than we knew at age 50. And we can stand back and look at things a lot differently. And Barbara gave a good example about the adult kids not giving advice, learning to shut up, which is
that hard?
Really hard.
I love what Meg does with one of her children, or maybe she does with all three, but I know of one where she'll say to them after they describe something going on, "May I offer you some advice?"
Right.
And sometimes that grown child will say yes or no, and Meg follows it.
And then I don't expect them to follow it anyway.
But that's
whatever.
a good takeaway. Are there other takeaways? I mean, certainly every woman in this conversation has dealt with the struggles we're talking about. And as your children get older, it's not about discipline and making sure they eat their peas and have a healthy, balanced life. It's really serious things that you might want to opine on that are not things you should. But what other things should we have as
Well,
takeaways from Not Dead Yet? One of my favorite lines.
yeah, my mother had told me, who's no longer alive, she had said to me when my first younger daughter had her first child, she said, You've you've raised your children, now it's their time, which is great advice. But I will say that my mother did not take that advice. My mother was always weighing in on what we should do or not do. And I think that's one reason why I've tried not to. Oh, and here was an example from this weekend when I was with both daughters at a family function. And I was explaining why my partner and I didn't go to a certain family wedding because at the time my mother was starting to decline, but not bad, said to me, well, you're not going to go and leave me, are you? So she had been invited, but she couldn't go. So we didn't go to that wedding because of my mother. And I told that to my daughters, and they both said, well, you would never do that to us, would you?
Cute.
But we're talking about, our dialogue here is about harboring around age 50. I want to hear about 70. I love that we should think of that as the beginning of a new chapter. Why do you say that, and what does that mean?
Well, it's a new way of looking at friendships, being a little bit more discriminating and figuring out how to make new friends, which is, we've heard often that people have said, you can't make new friends at this age. Oh, absolutely, you can. We both moved recently. I moved to a new apartment in New York City and Barbara moved to Baltimore. And we've had to cultivate all new friends. And it's a skill. I don't think I could have done it at age 50. I was in a different place, different priorities, still, heavily involved in working. It's also balancing sleep and eating and walking and, all the craziness with the exercise and how many steps and
And Meg sings in several groups.
yes. So
Well, that was a question I had. Give us some examples of places that you've met new friends. So, Meg, you sing. That's been a place where you've met some friends.
Yes. Yes.
I'm a tutor. I tutor kids. I work in a food pantry. I've met people that way. I talk to everyone. It's fascinating. I have fabulous conversations with people on subways and buses. I mean, there's drama going on every second in this city, New York City.
Right.
Being from St. Louis, it was a little different.
It's like that column in the New York Times, remember? I'm sure everyone here has read it now. I'm forgetting the name of it, where it would be stories like that.
Metropolitan Diary.
Yes.
They still have it. Yeah. I've had some very interesting experiences.
So, what about accepting what won't happen? Dreams that you may have had to leave by the wayside. How do you deal with that? And what were examples of some of them?
Well, I think of it, I have a lot of, both Meg and I care about our friendships deeply. We're good friends to other people and people are good friends to us. And I'm in a Zoom group every other month with a group of my childhood friends from K through 8. And, we celebrate each other's happiness and sadness, and a number of them have had 50 and 55-year anniversaries. I won't have that. I got divorced after 31 years. That's a big loss for me that I had to give that up. Now that I'm older, I like to travel. I'm not obsessed about it, but there are places that I probably won't go because it's just too long a flight.
Interesting. What about you, Meg?
Well, and Barbara has taken up painting again, and she's great. She does gorgeous watercolors, by the way. Well, you do. I stopped singing at around age 50. Really, honestly, at one point thought maybe I'd be an opera singer. I have a very high soprano voice, and I used to be a really good singer. And I sang with an oratorio group in St. Louis, and it was great. I did it for 10 years. Then I stopped, and I got involved in other things with kids because I love working with kids. I'm actually doing things now that I never did before. When I moved to New York, someone got me into the singing again. There was a commission at Lincoln Center, and they asked me, we could use you, blah, blah, blah. And I've done some phenomenal projects. So much fun. And it's a great community. I hate exercise. I just joined a gym for the first time in my life. So this is a new me, moving and doing. And I'm a skinny person. It isn't to lose weight or anything. It's just because you need to move. There are all those things you're supposed to do.
The supposed to's, right.
I did lose my husband to death, and I will never marry again. And I miss the camaraderie of that long time. We were married 42 years. I miss that person and the friendship that we had. And I know that I can't do that again. It's just not going to happen. So those are a few examples.
Are there things or dreams that, besides the singing and watercolor, that arrived late that you didn't expect?
Who are you
I
asking?
have
Both of you.
I have a partner. I did a tremendous amount of internet dating after I was divorced. I needed to validate myself after what had happened.
Tell her how many men you went out with.
I went out
Please.
with 350.
You kept track.
I kept a spreadsheet
A
because I
spreadsheet.
was
Now,
Well, why
that's a
did you keep
blog
this?
I'd like to read.
There's
You
a
kept this.
chapter in the book, Suddenly Single After 50, about my internet dating. And I got on planes, trains, car rides. I didn't go on a bus. But so I met a lot of people. I got very good at it where I could tell with the conversation or that I didn't even want to meet in person or met for coffee, and then I was ready to sort of bag it all and thought had moved east and moved to a small town in upstate New York, and I was happy there. And I thought, okay, I'm happy as a single. You know, I had friends in my family. And then I was fixed up. And I called him by college, somebody he knew from college and I knew in another way, and fixed us up and we met. And that was more than 14 years ago. And it's been very good. I don't want to remarry again. I feel I had one marriage, and we're happy together. And it's been very different. It's very different, I feel, when you meet at this older age. You've raised children, you know what you're interested in, you know the kind of people you like to be with. It's very much about companionship and values
But,
and
it's
romance.
interesting because you both said that you don't want to remarry.
Got to get
And
romance in there.
I hear this a lot from women and that they just don't want to remarry again. What's going on? And that's a problem for the men who do want to remarry when they're older.
I can address that. I took care of a
Yes.
sick husband for 5 years. I do not want to do that again. And I feel if you're in a relationship, it's kind of a commitment that you make. I'm not just going to walk out on somebody. Be 80 in August. I have tons of energy. And most of the men out there can't keep up with me. I did date after my husband died. 2 years after he died, I ran into an old high school boyfriend, that old high school boyfriend thing. And we went out for about 3 years. And then I didn't enjoy it anymore. And I moved here to New York City.
Let's move to
And
aging.
it's financial too. There are financial things too, which is a whole different discussion. Okay.
Can I just ask one other thing about the spreadsheet? So I knew some women in different age brackets, let's say in their 20s or 30s, where they're probably in their 30s, where they want to get married and they make criteria for marriageable potential in other, in the people they're looking at. Barbara, did your spreadsheet have columns? What did you rate
No, it was
things?
more to keep track of people. And I think it's very different online dating because most people go into it with, these are my likes, these are my dislikes, this is what I want. I want someone who plays tennis, I want someone who doesn't drink or whatever they go into, or the religion. And I had those in the back of my mind. And then when I was fixed up, it was like, it all went out the window. It was a more natural process of getting to know the person and discovering what you had in common. But I did want to get remarried after I got divorced. That was my goal. I thought, well, I'm just going to go. The first person I went out with, who I met on JD, I was convinced that I was going to get married to him.
Until you
And
saw
then
him when you got off the plane.
I saw him when I got off the plane, and I knew we weren't getting married, I guess. But he was fun. He was delightful. And we talked for a year on the phone before we met. And then Meg drove me to the airport for that first flight. Do you remember that, Meg?
Telling you, you are nuts to do this. Nuts.
Threw yourself into the project.
I admit I was nuts, but a bad divorce can do that to you.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
a bad loss of death can do that to you.
Well, that I didn't do. But you asked about also how do you maintain a 38-year relationship, work, friendship, very close friendship. We use a lot of laughter and we love to gossip. I'm sorry I'm revealing this, Barbara, but we have more fun on the phone. We'll do some work and then we gossip and then we do some, because we know so many people in common. So,
And there are recent
Meg
articles
is
about gossip is actually
probably
good
the
for
most
us.
confidential person I know.
yeah, I am. And you tell me not to say something, I'm the Sphinx.
Except
No,
when you're
and
telling it to Barbara.
And
I don't always tell Barbara everything. I know. Well, you didn't know. Yeah, there are a few things you didn't know about me
There are a few
until
things.
more recently.
There are a few things. We each
You
have
know,
more.
before we move to aging, there is one thing about friendship. You've talked about how important your friendships are and how you care and nurture about them. What about the ones that go by the wayside? The people you want to cut out? Talk
Good
about
question.
that.
Yeah, Barbara.
As we've aged, some friendships just don't work anymore. And we've written about this in our blog about, you don't have to return calls, you don't have to return emails, and gradually things can slip away. And there are other friendships that you want to preserve. Sometimes they hit bumps, and we'll run by each other how to handle these kind of personal situations. That's the benefit of a long-time relationship. She knows a lot of my friends or knows about them. I know about hers, and she's my sounding board.
Yeah. And we know we can trust each other implicitly. I think I've gotten smarter about friendships as I've aged. As I said, more discriminating. I have a friend here who is always late and somewhat depressed, but she's always late. And the last time she was late, I said, okay, this really is starting to bother me. I don't always speak up, but I did. And she said that she's very depressed. And she can't sometimes make herself get dressed. Oh, one time she just didn't show up. So the 50-year-old me would have said, forget it. This is it. I'm done, blah, blah, blah. And I sat and listened to her. And then I thought there's got to be a better way of handling this rather than making her feel boxed in when, I'll meet you for lunch at 12:30. I'm taking a walk at 4:00. Can we meet? You're welcome to join me, kind of thing. And then if she joins me, fine. If she doesn't, I'm still going to take the walk. And
Right.
that's one of the smart things I've learned as I've aged. And
Yes, we've discussed this, Maura and I, with people who might be late. And one trick I have, because you're right, do you want to take a separation from a friend or is it going to be a divorce over certain behaviors? And one trick is I always have a third. And so if this person shows up, then we're 3. And if they don't, we're 2. Or a larger group. But I don't want to cut them out. And there's a few people actually horribly late, just like you're saying, not showing up. But when you hear something like depression, it's nice that you made an accommodation that can work for that person.
Yes, and I have a friend who I stopped hearing from. She is very happy when I call, and I
yeah.
finally put the pieces together. And finally, this person told me that she has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, which made sense. But yet we have very good conversations still on the phone. So my expectations are different. I know that to maintain it, I have to do the work. And in many cases, it's worth it. And then sometimes there are cases where you get tired of always making the effort. And some of those friendships will die. And also, Meg and I know from moving, I've moved multiple times. It takes work to maintain those friendships where you don't see them face to face often. And so
Barbara
it's
is
worth
very
it.
good at that. You're really good at that, Barbara.
And
I've
that is
learned a
work.
lot I have learned a lot from you in that department, maintaining
So-
those friendships.
so
She's
we're gonna
also very
move-
kind. We've become kinder as we've aged. We're trying to be kind.
So we're going to move to aging because you tackled that a lot. You have a recent column called We Oldies Might Be Golden, but We Come in Different Hues to fight the
Oh, right.
concept that all olders are the same. Everyone's a boomer. And frankly, they use that term to cover multiple generations at this point. I think Gen Alpha is calling Gen X and Gen Z boomers or UNC. So in the aging, when did you first start to feel it? At 50, did you feel like you were getting older? Or was it 60 or 70? Or maybe it was 30?
That's a good question.
It is a good
I
question.
felt with this last birthday, I just turned 77. And I would say in the last year, I have felt older. I still have a lot of energy. I don't have a problem with that. I feel older because I'm going to the doctors more often. And need next month, I'll have cataract surgery done. I know everybody says it's no big deal, but to me, it is a big deal because my eyes are so important for my reading, drive a lot where I live. I need to I need to get hearing aids, which I haven't done yet. So those signs are telling me the fact that that I don't need certain medical exams anymore. I probably did my last colonoscopy, which says that I am old. My knees are not old. Fortunately, my hips are not old. So it's more the more frequent doctor appointments, the teeth, the more dental appointments.
Do the doctors or other people speak to you differently at a certain
Well, I'll
age?
tell you, when we moved here to Baltimore, and they're excellent medical care, and we moved because one daughter asked us to age closer to her.
For her or
Well, she didn't come out and say it. I think she did it partially for her because she saw what good care I took of my mother, but I was closer geographically, so she wouldn't have to run up and take care of me and with her busy life and her sister's busy life. But I think she also felt it would be good for us. So I think it was both. But I went to a new wonderful doctor, and he said, this is a year ago. So I was 76 or maybe 75 still at that time. And he said to me, well, you should have 10 good years left. And I said, what? I said, my mother lived to almost 101. I'm counting on more. Well, I don't know why he said it at the time. I didn't question him. I recently saw him again and I said, do you remember you told me I was going to have 10 good years left? So now that makes it 9 good years left. And he said, I don't remember telling you that. He said, I hope you have more.
I've noticed when I go to the doctor, the first thing out of their mouth when they see something that is a health issue, at your age, ... And I think we have that in the book somewhere. It's interesting because it's easier. When I was younger, I used to revere doctors. I would never have engaged them in conversation but now it's more reciprocal. And they look sometimes like my doctor, my internist is like 39 or something. And I think she thinks of me as a mother type. My dermatologist too. She's always comparing me to her mother. But Barbara really nailed it with how we feel older. The hearing aids, the cataract surgery, moving a little slower.
But you move very quickly.
I do, too fast. Yeah. Well, I promised the doctor I would slow down.
And what about the looking in the mirror?
It is. If I could.
You mean it's a universal thing?
Yeah. You look in the mirror and go, who is that person?
No, I was recently looking at some family pictures because of an event this past weekend. And I saw a lot of pictures at my younger daughter's wedding almost 15 years ago. And I thought, my God, that's when I don't like having photographs taken of me at events. I'll take pictures of it, but I don't want to be in photos. I don't,
But
I have a lot of,
that one photo was good. The one that you put on Facebook. No, you look great in that photo.
but I'm so much more aware of it. I see it in my friends. And the wrinkles and when I last went to the doctor for my wellness visit, shrinking. I've shrunk. I mean, who would have thought? And it's not just a little bit. I mean, I've shrunk a fair amount.
Is there a particular age where this happened?
After
Not the
menopause.
shrinking, the looking in the mirror.
I think in the 70s, we have a lot of friends we've written about. Neither of us has done Botox, and we don't plan to. We're not judgmental. Let people do whatever they want. We have friends who've had facelifts and neck lifts and eye lifts and nose jobs, and great. We've chosen not to for various reasons.
Well, you have a lot of friends. Do you feel, just an independent little survey here between the two of you, your friends who've made drastic choices, the eye lifts women get sometimes because you just can't see over the saggy skin, but
these other procedures, getting your face, pulled back, whatever. Did it make them happier? Do they look younger, or do they look like a woman who had a facelift and is still the same age as you?
Well, I have some who I think definitely it has not enhanced their good looks, that they were more attractive before. I used to joke with Meg when I lived in the New York area and I'd go to Bergdorf Goodman's or walk up Madison Avenue. I mean, I'd count how many facelifts I'd see, and some really good ones. I do have one friend in California who Meg knows, a designer, had a terrific facelift. I mean, she was in my house and she said, "How do I look?" And I said, "You look terrific." And she did, and she told me, but that was rare for
Right.
me.
Right. Well, there's a great hairdresser from Milan that if you just want to lie in bed and scroll, I think he goes by Cappuccino, and he cuts
I
women's
like
hair,
those.
and they're older. And let me tell you something, they look great just with the new hairdo. And I just love to scroll through his success stories and the hair he's doing is not also inaccessible, bleached, pulled. It's gray, it's curly, it's loose. He's just showing them how to look at themselves differently. And I think that those are really good positive image stories that it's really important women see that and don't just look at one type of reflection.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Check them out. I'll share it with you.
I mean, you
So
can.
let's talk
Barbara and I,
about
we're not particularly vain people, though. I know a lot of vain people,
Right.
and they go nutso over how they look. One of my sisters, especially, who's a lot younger than I am, and she's gorgeous. But oh my God, she has the money, and boy, does she spend it on how she looks. So
okay, we're going to talk about the things that maybe people weren't talking about when you were in your 30s.
I can,
Like
yeah.
the thing that's really all over the news and social media these days is perimenopause and menopause. And I have two things to ask about that. One, the lore is that in earlier generations, women didn't talk about these things. And I'm wondering if that was the case.
I didn't hear about that. But the thing that I found more interesting that people didn't talk about when I was in my 30s, people didn't talk about sex.
They didn't.
No, at
not
least
in the
my freshman.
Midwest.
I remember when a writer, a friend of mine, was writing, I don't remember if it was an article or what, but she said to me, "Talk to me and it will be anonymous about your sex life." And I said, "Absolutely not.
Right.
There was no way." And then once I started dating again after my divorce, a lot of people, fairly good friends said to me, "How is the chemistry?" And I was more willing to talk about things then.
Barbara, you're blushing.
Yeah.
But the
Well, you,
villages did have STDs go around, so it's a real topic.
And there wasn't AIDS when we were in our 30s either.
so you actually tackled this in one of your recent blog posts and said dating and sex. Yes, some of us are still dating and still having sex, which many young people cannot fashion. However, at our advanced age, sex is even better than when we were younger. There are no kids in the house. We
I
aren't
remember that.
rushed. And it's more about intimacy than intercourse per se. And another payoff, regular sex can prolong your life. So go for it. Or don't. Did it take a lot to write that
It's
for you,
easy
or was it
now.
just comfortable?
I couldn't have done that in my 30s at all.
I
I
couldn't
mean,
have done it either.
no.
And when
No.
we wrote our book, Suddenly Single After 50, a childhood friend of mine, who actually one point lived in Larchmont, she read the book for us. We had a few people reading chapters of the book, and she read the book and she liked it, but she said there's a chapter missing. And she's the one who said you have to write about sex.
It's that.
Susan,
You're kidding.
no.
That's
We do like to
interesting.
gossip. Well, think of Judy Blume's Wifey, right? That was a real turning point. She dealt with adolescent periods and sex and things. And then she came out with Wifey, and that really showed a whole other side of women's desires and whatever she was doing. And I think it all hinges upon also this open discussion about women's health. Like it's been ignored. So this is part of that frontier that is important. We need more information and more openness.
Right.
Well,
Mary,
yeah,
more
both of us,
can talk about it, not me.
well, and both of us married right out of college. We were both 22.
we knew nothing.
We knew nothing.
Did you know anything? I knew nothing.
I knew nothing. That could be like Nora Ephron. It's all about my neck, or, you know, we knew absolutely nothing.
But I assume you've caught up, so it all doesn't matter.
Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. We'd have to compare notes. I don't know.
Barbara, 50 men you went out with. You caught
I
up.
said I went out, but that doesn't mean jumping into bed with 350 things.
No, of course you did.
That's a different book.
The highest rate of sexually transmitted diseases is among or at least it was at one point among the older.
You're
I'm
right.
sure
It
it still
was.
is.
Right.
Yes.
Well, there was a picture of my grandmother with her husband, and she looked gorgeous. She had a mink stole and a bouffant. So it looked kind of old to me at that time. I was a teenager. And I said, Grandma, how old were you in that picture? And she said, I was in my prime and I didn't even know it. And I said, well, how old was that? And she said, 40. And I thought that was a really good, it definitely put things in perspective for me, looking at how beautiful she was and how she felt that that was her prime, 40 years old, looking back on it.
Interesting. Huh. Wow.
So a corollary of not dead yet would be not done yet. So what are you building toward now? What can we expect, and what do you want to do next?
I have 4 grandsons who range from 12 down to 18 months. And I want to see as much of their life as I can. I don't know, the 18-month-old, I won't get to see him get married unless he's a child groom or whatever. But I want to have as many of those years. When my oldest one was born 12 years ago, my partner and I were out to dinner the second night after he was born, and I cried. And he said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Because I hope to see him live a long life." So that's my goal.
Meg?
I don't have grandchildren. I have one son who's engaged and will never marry because kids today don't get married. What can I say? But I hope my kids continue to be gainfully employed and they're healthy and happy. And I really I hope to continue being as busy as I am and engaged and making new friends, because you got to have a social circle. It's so important, as you know.
Is there another book on the horizon for
Yes.
either or both of you?
But we can't talk about it. Barbara, you talk about it.
No, we're sworn to secrecy till.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to say
It doesn't
anything.
fall into gossip?
It'll have gossip in it, believe me.
No. I also
It'll be very
want
conversational.
I also hope that both of us maintain our mental faculties. When you go for the wellness visit every year and they have you tell the
Yes.
clock hands.
They do?
Yeah, you haven't had that yet.
What age does that start?
It just
So I can look
started for
forward to
me.
it.
Probably, doesn't it start like 65, or is it older?
Mine just started. My doctor, for the first time, asked me all those memory questions.
Oh, I've done
And
that.
she said, you have nothing wrong with your memory. You
You
know
have to
too
draw
much.
a clock and show the hands and tell the time. So,
Something to look
I've
forward
never
to,
done
Christy.
oh.
Okay.
Well, young
So-
kids can't do that. They're not taught how to do it. Okay.
That's analog
Right,
clock.
because they all have digital watches.
Exactly.
True.
So what do you know now that you wish your 50-year-old selves had known
About friendship or balancing or
about life?
Anything, life.
I wish I knew back then how I knew that you could do a lot of things, but you necessarily couldn't do them all at the same time. But I wish I had known that I should be more adventuresome back then. I was before I got divorced, I was the good wife, the good mother, the good worker bee. I didn't think about doing something wild and crazy. I don't even know what that would be, like going off on a wild adventure or just doing more fun things.
350 dates sounds like it fits in that
Yeah.
category.
Okay.
That
But
was a big risk.
Okay.
how
Well,
about you,
the
Meg?
first date was the big risk. Wow.
The White House.
The first date that you had when you got off the plane and went, ugh.
What about you, Margaret?
Little bit more of a risk taker. I'm a rule follower, and I kind of like to stay within those four walls. And I wish I had really done more as a young person with my singing rather than just sort of do it as a hobby. And I could have. I just didn't have the discipline. And then you get caught up with the husband and the kids. I have 3 kids, and I lost a sense of me for a long time. Now, this is the first time in my life, because I'm living on my own, and I never did, that I'm really focused on me. So I'm doing things now that I never would have done before. And the singing is a risk for me.
Putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who knows, Barbara, maybe I'll dance next. We
Yeah,
never know.
I think also both of us probably couldn't have imagined. Well, by 50, I'd already moved twice, but I think both of us couldn't have imagined picking up and moving at this stage. And I would say to other people, if they were asking us, I would say, move sooner than later, because it's arduous moving at the age, getting rid of belongings, paperwork, possessions, deciding where you want to be, hopefully hopefully we don't move for a long time. But I think we both know that if we had to, if our place wasn't good for some reason, that we could do it again now.
Well, we know how. We've got it down to a fine art. Yeah, moving. Right. I forgot what I was
Christy, you
saying.
want to go for our last question?
Well, first of all, I want to find out, where can we find you ladies? Do you have a website or social handles? Where can our listeners find you?
www.lifelessons@50plus.com. And yeah,
Go
and
ahead,
it's fun.
Mia.
It's fun. There are funny pictures of us. One of the physical therapists yesterday was looking us up online, and she was laughing hysterically at the big head pictures that we have.
Right.
She loved it.
So the big question we ask every guest, and I'm going to pose it to each of you separately. Can you have it all and all at the same time? Barbara?
Absolutely not. And I learned that when I was graduating college, the career counseling office at my college said to me, you can do a lot of different things, but you can't do them all well, or can't do them even well at the same time. You can have a career, you can be a mother, you can be a wife, but something's got to give.
But that was the thinking then. I mean, we went to college to find somebody and get married. I remember when my husband proposed, and in the old days, talked to my parents and said, I want to marry you. Mother said, okay, Meg, now you don't need to look for a job. I just finished undergraduate school. Now you don't need to look for a job. And my father said, absolutely, she needs to get a job, and I expect you to have one by the end of the week.
Right. But can you have it all and all at the same time, Margaret?
I don't think
I don't think it's possible. Something will slide.
I thought I did. I had the marriage, the kids, the job, but I guess at that time there wasn't room for outside activities very much. Those were my activities.
Well, that's where most of our energy went, and especially raising those kids. And then that brings up another thing when there's empty nest all of a sudden. And that's another balancing act. Do you really like this person you're married to? Well, I read a statistic that said the people who are getting divorced the most are over 50.
And that was my case. My case was right,
exactly. Right.
The midlife crisis or whatever it was right at age 50.
And more women than men ask for the divorce.
And what's amazing for me now is I've now been separated or divorced more than 25 years, which is mind-boggling to me that it was that long ago. It was another lifetime ago. I have another life now.
Well, that's what's interesting. You do, and so do I. A completely different life. And the biggest risk I've ever taken was moving to New York City from St. Louis, Missouri. That was huge and difficult.
I remember when Meg told me she was doing it, she said, I have to say it out loud because then I know it's real. It's like the Velveteen Rabbit, making it real, that it's really going to happen.
Well, it's wonderful. It's been wonderful talking to you, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us, and keep us posted on your next books and endeavors.
Please. It was great talking to you, too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Please follow us, listen to us, and rate us on our platforms, Spotify, Apple, and our website, thebalanceddilemma.com, where you can also subscribe to our newsletter and email us your suggestions. There's no cost, but it means a lot to us.